Welcome to this workshop on digital creation, focusing on creating digital content with impact. This session is going to cover what digital creation is, some examples of how to get started, but it's not going to give a detailed guide through all of the different applications. So starting with what is digital creation? Well, digital creation refers to the process of using technology and digital tools to produce creative content such as images, videos, websites, music, written works, designs, and a lot more. These can be things like PowerPoints, posters, forum posts, journals, websites, podcasts, but it could also entail videos and images as well. Digital creation powers modern marketing campaigns. Someone who understands not only how to create but also how to use and leverage social media platforms can help strengthen a brand's awareness and identity. This can be done through videos, interactive content, promotional posts, and engagement opportunities. Digital tools are not just for creativity, they form the backbone of content creation. For example, applications like the Adobe Suite make it possible to design professional quality branding materials such as logos, leaflets, and social media posts. Digital creation also means that you need to be aware of the trends across different platforms such as YouTube and TikTok, so that you can adapt content to help boost audience engagement, further exposing an audience to your branding and marketing. When we think about entertainment as being part of the digital creation, we have to think about it as not just being leisure, but also a creative exploration of an idea that enables you to connect with other people. Digital creation plays such a huge role in how we consume and even create entertainment content. Things like film, TV, and YouTube can help inspire and influence, which might lead you to work on projects of your own, such as creating music, podcasts, videos, or even live streams to share your passions. By creating, you're not only learning, but you're thinking about the skills and other areas that are required to build into something that you want to show off and create to share with others. We have to think about the planning, the management side of things, how to set something up, refining the skill or activity that you're showing. You have to do the editing, and then you have to think about the distribution as well. All of these build up into the end product and are extremely beneficial when you're creating something. An additional benefit of creating is that it enables you to start to create a portfolio and demonstrate and showcase your skills and talent. This isn't just things that are happening in your digital content, it can be around the actual subject area as well. And it's just a really good way to share your ideas out to an audience. But it's not just for entertainment, it can also be for education and sharing knowledge as well. Maybe you've learned something new and you want to share it with the world. Well, being able to create something and then share that plays a big part in helping you share that out into the world. Whether that's a short blog or a social media post, or even designing your own content to help teach others on different programs such as Canva or Articulate, creating enables you to work out your favorite ways of learning, but also then sharing those ways of learning with other individuals as well. Additionally, digital creation can be a great way to help you break down an idea or a task that you might be struggling with. And then you can share that with other people so they can understand the concept as well. Perhaps the biggest area of creation is creating something for yourself. It enables you to share stories, hobbies, and other bits out of creativity, and then share that out with the world. Often by using video editing, photo editing, and graphic design to share your interests out for the world to see, digital creation empowers you to publish the blogs, create art, or even start an own business to showcase your talents to a global audience. By doing this, it also helps you develop your own portfolio, and it also enables you to make your work more accessible for those who would like to view it. So, when we're thinking about the creative process, it usually works in 4 blocks. First, we have the idea/pre-production stage, and this is where all of your planning, paperwork, legal documents, and research will come into place. Now, this will change and it will get larger depending on how big of a scale you're working on. Generally, if you're working on your own, you'll probably do a bit of research, you'll probably have some paperwork, probably bits of planning. But as you get into larger businesses, this paperwork will skyrocket as you have a lot more legal requirements to make sure everyone's safe. Then we reach the production stage, which is where you go out and make your project. This can be filming something, it might be creating a document, it might be creating a poster. And then we get to the post-production stage. Sometimes production and post-production can become one stage, especially if you're working on something like a poster. However, you might be sending these out to clients. It also could be where you're editing some footage to actually create the product. So this is where you make all of the changes to the pieces that you've created. And then we get into probably one of the hardest things to actually do, which is distribution. Distribution is quite difficult just because platforms change. You need to understand what content works on different platforms, where is your primary audience located, or maybe you're working out who is your audience if you're just starting out. These are all things to consider, especially when you're doing research. The longest part of this process is the pre-planning stage, as it will inform the rest of your project. Make sure that you spend a lot of time researching, developing your idea, and also sharing that idea out with others. Other people's opinions can be really helpful at expanding this creative process, and it can change your idea. Typically, a good place to start with your idea would be to create either a storyboard or maybe a skeleton of sort of the idea that you want to roll with. So let's say we're going to create a video or an animation. This could be a thing like a storyboard, a rough sketch, also maybe a brief breakdown of the idea, which then we can review later. When we're moving over to the content planning stage, this is the time you'll dedicate to actually fleshing out the project. To fully understand what you'll need to create the idea, you can do things like storyboards, timelines of projects, mood boards, design concepts, prototypes. It's also the time to work out if you'll need additional people. So if you are filming an advert or maybe some content, maybe you'll need to do a call sheet to work out who you'll actually need on set, what times they're needed. And this can also include an equipment sheet, so what we'll actually need when you're recording something or you're developing a project. What are the legal materials like actors' release forms, what we need for branding, and more importantly, and this is a question more for yourself, but what will make this a successful project? Now, if you are working in a business, I'm sure this will come down to analytics, but if you're working on a project that is purely for yourself, this can also be things like, maybe I'm just trying to build out an audience, maybe I want 50 views, maybe I want 50 subscribers, maybe I want to reach 10,000 subscribers by the end of the month by conducting different projects. So work out what is a successful project. It might even not be having a certain amount of views. It might just be going out and creating and learning something. That can be a successful project. We're going to briefly talk about visual communication just because it is really important and is often something that can be overlooked, especially when it comes to marketing and branding. When we're talking about visual communication, we're often talking about the basic design literacy. And while some of them are more complex, I'm going to cover some of the simpler ones just to help you expand, and then you can explore later. The first one's going to be colour theory, as colour can play a very impactful role when designing something. Every colour has a meaning, which can also change per culture. So consider what you're trying to communicate. For example, let's say we wanted to communicate anger, for example. In Western society, red is often related to anger. So we might dress a character or dress a product in red. Additionally, certain colours can work better with other colours, while others might struggle with the contrast. In the top right corner, we do have a colour wheel, so be sure to check that out. Generally, how a colour wheel works is that opposite colours work better together, where colours next to each other might be more difficult to read and tell apart. We're also going to mention typography in this section. Text is another difficult item that you might find when you're working on something, just because different fonts and different colour formats and different font formats in general can be quite difficult to read against each other. So it's really important to understand the text and visual hierarchy. Text has a weight defined by its position, size, and capitalization, as well as style. Think about the spacing or general font spacing. We got to make sure that the most important things are the biggest thing you can see on the page, but we don't want it to feel overwhelmed. So try not to have too much text on screen, but also make sure you've got enough to understand what the project is. We don't want it overcrowding or lacking in content. This includes alignment for text as well. Generally, for Western speaking countries, our text is on the left hand side of the page, but you might want to move it around if you're going for a stylistic reason. Or you might be publishing a piece of content elsewhere, so that style of text might need to relate to the origin point that you're sending it to. You'll also want to make sure that you are keeping your branding consistent or your project consistent. Once you have an idea and you have a theme, or maybe there's a theme that's been running in a company for a long time, make sure you stick with it. A great example for this would be Cadbury's. They've always kept the royal purple with one of the milk jugs, and this is in all of their marketing campaigns because it's recognizable and it's identifiable to Cadbury's. Next is platform awareness. During this time, you'll want to work out your deliverables. So if you are working on a big project where maybe you've got quite a few different types of videos, maybe you've got some posters, this is the time to work out what platform will get what. Now, some platforms might get the whole campaign, other platforms only might get a smaller campaign. For example, you might post an entire marketing campaign on YouTube. You can run ads through there. You can also run various different posters through the YouTube AdSense scheme. However, a platform like TikTok has a lot more short content, so it's understanding the requirements for each platform. Think about as well what type of target audience you want to reach. Different platforms will have different target audiences, so make sure that you conduct some research to understand what target audience will be better suited for your project. Once you have chosen a platform, make sure that you're aware of how that application is typically used. For example, TikTok is generally used on mobile phones, which are portrait, so you want to create a lot of content that will fit that portrait style. Things like YouTube, however, they can be used on mobile phones, it can be used on TVs, it can be used on computers or tablets or consoles. Now, a lot of those work landscape, so you want to create some landscape content, but for those users on mobile, that content might get a little bit distorted. So it's making sure that you create the right size content as well. Once you have released a project, you need to work out what the markers are you'll use to track success. Now, first of all, why does this matter? Well, it helps you understand your audience behavior. Maybe something doesn't reach the right people that you want it to. Sometimes a piece of content can blow up massively. So understanding the analytics goes a long way of understanding your audience's behavior. It also helps you identify high performing content, and it helps you then refine your content strategy and tone for other projects moving forward. But it also saves time by focusing on what actually works. What we have on the screen is just some stats that you can track through your analytics. So the way this works is we have the metric on the left. So for example, we have views and impressions. Then we have what it tells you. So views and impressions will equal our reach and visibility, and then what that applies to. So this generally applies to videos, posts, and blogs. But then we can also have things like watch time, which relates to how long users generally stay for our content, which then can inform how long our videos will last, and as well as things like courses, how long should they last to keep the attention span. It's all important things, and it's very interesting when you start looking into it. So be sure to conduct some research just so you really understand the analytics, and it helps you measure your overall performance and how well things are doing too. So where can you get started? Well, there's a number of tools you can get started. I'd always recommend first doing some research and thinking about what you actually want to publish. You might not be interested in creating videos. You might not be interested in creating a LinkedIn post, but you might be very interested in creating some small assets for a tabletop game, for example. So here are some websites just to help you get started, just to sink your teeth in and explore, and then go out and explore everything else. So first we have Canva, which is a graphic design platform that is used to help create graphics, presentations, posters, and other visual content. It's free to use. There is some premium content, but be sure to go over and check that out. We also have the Adobe Suite, so it's a little bit more advanced than Canva. It does come at a premium cost, but the tools are industry standard for working in photography, or maybe working in TV, or maybe working in film, or even podcasting. So be sure to check those out. We have some website designers here. I've chosen a paid option and a free option. Wix and Squarespace, they are very good website builders, and it's definitely something that you should experiment with. I'd recommend using one of them to maybe create a portfolio. Now, Wix is a free alternative. It can be used to build out a very good website. Squarespace is a paid alternative, which comes with a lot more customizability to their websites. Just be sure that you are aware of what your URL will lead to. So this is the link that users will type in to access your website. Wix has a very bad habit of using wix.com on your URL, which I think looks a little bit amateurish. So if you have the funds available, be sure to spend that little bit more money just so you have your own customizable URL to direct people to. We also have OBS in the bottom right corner, so this stands for Open Broadcasting Software, which is a piece of software that is completely free to use. You can download to your laptop device or your PC device, and this will allow you to record content on your PC to then take into one of these editing software apps, such as like Premiere or DaVinci Resolve, for example. So if you watch people online who might stream video games or they might record something live, generally they're going to be using a form of OBS. So there's lots of different tutorials on how to use OBS and how to set it up. If it's something you're interested in, definitely recommend going ahead and trying that out. Other applications that aren't on the screen is we have things like DaVinci Resolve, which is another free editing software, which is great to use. There's things like CapCut for applications for video editing for things like TikTok. There's Audacity for audio editing, GarageBand for music. There's FlipperClip for animation. There's also Procreate for image and animation manipulation. And we can also use things like Notion for a writing tool aid, as well as Visual Code Studio for coding. So a very important thing that I want to mention just before we wrap this session up is think about digital accessibility. Digital accessibility is about enabling everyone to access a piece of content, regardless of their accessibility needs. So think about people who might not necessarily fit into a more general audience. Think about if you have a deaf user or maybe a blind user, how will they interact with your content? Can they interact with it? Will they be able to access it? Is there anything there that will enable them to utilize that thing that you've created in their own unique way? Now, this can be very tricky, but it's very important to consider. Now, there is some resources that I'll leave in the comments below just so you can read this and understand some of the materials that you can provide. Thank you for watching this video. We do run this workshop live where I do have some examples of actually creating content. I haven't showed it here just because I wanted a little bit more of a condensed version of this workshop. But be sure to head over to libguides/workshops if you want to attend this workshop live to watch some of those examples. We do have a massive library and catalogue of other workshops that you can join, not only focusing on digital skills, but also looking at academic skills as well.